Alright, the story you're gonna hear today is about a miracle. If you guys don't know what a miracle is, you should by the end of this story. Just remember, only God can do miracles and He still does them today. So, Jesus sent out His 12 disciples out into the country and gave them the power to heal sick people and tell others about God's love. When the disciples returned, they met with Jesus to tell him about all the people they had talked to and had healed. They were all very excited to tell Jesus about their adventures. The problem was, though, people followed the disciples so they could also find Jesus. The people had seen the miracles Jesus had done and wanted to see more. But Jesus knew the disciples wanted to talk to him alone and they haven't even gotten a chance to eat yet. So Jesus told them, "Come with me and we will find a quiet place to talk and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a quiet place. But many people saw them leaving and recognized them and ran after them on land. The boat Jesus and the disciples were in was slowed down because of the wind, so the people actually got to the other side of the shore before Jesus and the disciples. So when Jesus and the disciples arrived, they noticed a large crowd. Jesus, though, felt love for these people because he knew that they needed a teacher and someone to believe in. He knew that the disciples would understand, so he began teaching the large crowd many things and healed those who were sick. The disciples, however, were very still tired and was hoping for that quiet time alone with Jesus. As the day grew late, they came to Jesus and said, "Send the people away so they can go to the surrounding villages and countryside to buy something for themselves to eat." Jesus smiled and said to the disciples, "You give them something to eat." What? The disciples didn't think that they understood Jesus the right way and looked upon the large crowd of people, and this is what they said: "Jesus, we can't feed all these people. We would have to work almost a whole year to pay for all the food." This was because there were at least 5,000 men, and those men also had families. While the disciples were talking to Jesus, one of the disciples named Andrew noticed a small boy walking by with a small lunch. He stopped the boy and asked him what he had. He quickly ran over where the disciples were talking to Jesus and said, "Here is a boy with 5 small loaves of bread and 2 small fish. But this is nothing compared to how many people there are here. There is not enough food for everyone." Jesus smiled and said, "Ask everyone to sit down and have them sit in groups of about 50 people." Thankfully, there was lots of grass to sit on, so everyone was seated, all 5,000 of them. After everyone was seated, Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looked up to heaven. He blessed the bread and broke up the loaves and gave them to his disciples to distribute it to the crowd. The disciples traveled among the crowds of people, distributing the broken pieces of bread and fish to the thousands of people there. Remember, these were 5 small loaves of bread and 2 small fish, only enough for a boy to eat. There were 5,000 people all eating from this boy's small lunch, and they could eat as much as they wanted. There are probably more than 5,000 people at your church or school, so it's a lot of people. After everyone was full, Jesus asked the disciples to gather all the food that was left over so nothing would be wasted. After they gathered all the baskets of food, they counted the food up, and surprisingly, There were 12 baskets still full with some bread and fish from the little boy's small lunch. Can you guys believe this? His small lunch probably barely filled one of the baskets before Jesus touched it. And so that is a miracle. So after the people realized what had happened, they said to each other, "This must be an important person sent from God." But Jesus is much more than that. Well, we know that Jesus could have done anything, so for us it shouldn't be too surprising. At the same time, Jesus didn't have to use that little lunch. He was God. He could have produced food out of a couple of rocks, yet he took what someone had and out of compassion for people, he used it to feed a lot of people. All the boy had to do was be willing to be used. And we can allow God to use our lives too. We trust Him to provide for us, and we trust Him to use whatever we give Him. We might not think that we have a lot of talent or ability or potential, but God sure does. He will take care of our needs, and He will use us in ways we can't even imagine. We bring ourselves, and He makes a new and wonderful creations out of our sinful lives. What a miracle.
Stories of the Bible. Jesus feeds the 5,000. This is Jesus,
Heyo!
who is the Son of God and the Savior of the world. While Jesus was on earth, He taught everyone about God's love. He did many miracles and healed people of their sickness.
Oh, hey, everyone!
A huge crowd kept following Him wherever He went because they saw His miraculous signs as He healed the sick. A crowd started to gather around Jesus. There were 5,000 men and many more women and children. Turning to Philip, He asked,
Hey, Philip!
"Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" You see, Jesus was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them."
Hey, I got an idea.
Then Andrew spoke up. "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd?" Jesus said, "Tell everyone to sit down."
Right, everyone, sit down.
Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and gave them to the people.
Here you go.
Afterward, He did the same with the fish. And they all ate as much as they wanted.
Want some more? I'm all good, thanks.
After everyone was full, Jesus told His disciples, "Now gather the leftovers, so that nothing is wasted."
You got it.
So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps, left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves and 2 fish.